Security, escort this black woman out immediately. She's interfering with our emergency board meeting. The moment Maya Jefferson stepped into the glass-paneled boardroom on the 47th floor, every conversation stopped. 12 suits turned toward her, their expressions morphing from confusion to suspicion within seconds. "Can I help you?" asked a man in a gray pinstripe suit, his voice clipped. That was Arthur Langston, chairman of the board, renowned for his swagger, feared for his bluntness. Maya blinked once. "Calm. I'm here for the quarterly strategy review." Langston narrowed his eyes. "Maintenance is down the hall. This meeting is for executives only." A ripple of unease stirred around the long marble table. One woman glanced at her phone. Another man, red-faced and frowning, leaned over to whisper, "Security?" Maya set her leather folio down at the head of the table. Her voice didn't rise. "I believe I'm in the right room." Langston stood now, puffing his chest. "Miss, I don't know how you got past reception, but this is a private corporate meeting. Either state your business clearly, or I'll have you removed." His tone was stern, but his eyes, those cold, dismissive eyes, spoke volumes. Maya had seen that look before. Not disbelief. Dismissal. Not curiosity. Contempt. From the hallway, 2 security guards approached. One of the executives had called them. The boardroom's massive floor-to-ceiling windows reflected a scene as old as time. A black woman in the middle of power, being treated as if she didn't belong. Langston pointed. "Escort her out. Now." And still, Maya didn't flinch. She opened her folio slowly. "No," she said. "You'll want to hear this first." The security guards hesitated, not because of Maya's tone, but because of the silence that had gripped the room. She wasn't yelling. She wasn't flustered. She was composed. Too composed. Langston scoffed, waving them forward. "She's clearly stalling. Get her. Touch me," Maya said quietly. "And your company will be facing an unlawful detainment lawsuit by lunchtime." One of the younger executives shifted in his seat. "Wait," she said, "your company?" Langston turned toward her again. "You think throwing legal threats will stop me from protecting this boardroom from intruders?" Maya finally pulled a document from her folio and placed it gently on the table. "I'm not the intruder, Mr. Langston. You are." Langston's face darkened. "Excuse me." She tapped the page. "This is the Articles of Incorporation, filed in 2011 under my name, followed by a Schedule A that lists majority ownership." A hush fell. Maya looked around the room. "You're all here to discuss strategic direction for Jefferson Wright Enterprises," she said. "And yet not one of you recognized the Jefferson half of the name." The room was silent, except for the faint buzz of a phone vibrating somewhere on the table. "I built this company," she said. "I brought it public. I negotiated every merger you now take credit for. And I've spent the last 3 years away, rebuilding after a personal loss, while watching this board dilute my vision." She turned her eyes to Langston. "You didn't recognize me because you never looked. And now, your arrogance has just become very public." She raised her phone slightly. Its camera still recording. Twitter, LinkedIn, Live. The feed had been going for over 4 minutes. Langston's face twitched. "You're bluffing." But his voice cracked at the end, just enough for doubt to creep in. Across the table, someone whispered, "Oh my God, it's really her." Another exec, Danica, the youngest on the board, was already scrolling through her phone under the table. Her eyes widened. "She's not bluffing," Danica said, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's trending. Hashtag Jefferson Returns. It's everywhere." Langston's eyes darted to the screen behind him, where Maya's LinkedIn profile was now being mirrored. Calm, professional, and unmistakably hers. Founder, CEO, majority shareholder. "I didn't approve a live stream," Langston said, his voice rising. "This violates company policy," Maya interrupted, "which I wrote, and which includes a clause allowing real-time transparency in board proceedings in matters involving executive misconduct." "Misconduct?" he spat. Maya stepped closer, eyes locked on him. "Yes, because what just happened here wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a display of systemic bias, of exclusion rooted in race, gender, and ego. The room was deathly quiet. She turned slowly, her voice even. None of you questioned his authority when he ordered me out. None of you asked who I was. None of you paused. Someone cleared their throat. Another coughed. Eyes lowered. Langston tried again. You think going public with this spectacle makes you a leader? You embarrassed this company. No, Maya said. You did that. When you treated the founder like a trespasser. Then she tapped her watch. Check your inboxes, she said. The board members fumbled for phones. And what they found waiting stunned them all. A chorus of soft buzzes and dings filled the boardroom as executives opened the email Maya had sent just moments before. Subject line, urgent, governance violation notice, from the desk of Maya Jefferson. Inside was a trove. Scanned documents, digital timestamps, shareholder agreements, voice memos from early investors, and, most damning, an internal audit that Maya had quietly commissioned weeks earlier. The audit detailed a consistent pattern of exclusion, board meetings rescheduled without her notification, strategic memos altered after her input, votes pushed through when she was on sabbatical. It was airtight, and it had Arthur Langston's fingerprints all over it. One of the executives, Carlos, the CFO, looked up slowly. His voice was faint. You knew this was going to happen. I hoped it wouldn't, Maya replied. But I prepared for it. Langston's face had turned an alarming shade of red. You're twisting this, he snapped. You abandoned your post for 3 years. You left a vacuum. I took a leave, Maya said evenly, to bury my husband, to raise my son, and every month, I still signed off on the executive summaries you sent me. Or rather, the sanitized versions you wanted me to see. She stepped toward the screen again, pulling up a side-by-side document comparison, one with her full comments, one with what the board had seen, half her notes deleted, budget reallocations erased, a clear manipulation trail. Langston's voice turned desperate. You're unfit to lead. You think emotional theatrics and live streams substitute for integrity. Maya interrupted sharply. Because that's what I'm here to restore. And then she looked at the security guards still standing awkwardly by the door. You can go now, she told them. Unless Mr. Langston has further cause to question my authority. They looked at each other, then back at Maya. And without a word, they stepped out. Langston straightened his jacket, but his power was slipping. You could see it, in the way no one backed him up, the way even his most loyal allies now studied their hands or suddenly found their phones very interesting. Look, he said, forcing a smile. We're all professionals here. No need to escalate further. If there were oversights, we can work them out internally. Maya raised an eyebrow. Internally? You mean quietly? Off the record? The same way you approved $7 million in executive bonuses while slashing our diversity initiative budget by half. A sharp gasp escaped from a woman in legal. Someone else muttered, Wait, what? I didn't, Langston started. But Maya turned to the screen again. With one tap, a transaction log appeared, highlighted in yellow. This isn't revenge, Mr. Langston. It's accountability. You've built your authority on silencing voices like mine, assuming we're too grateful, too polite, or too alone to fight back. Danica leaned forward, her voice tense. How long have you had this? Long enough to see the pattern, Maya replied. But not so long that I forgot how it felt to walk into this room and be invisible. She turned slowly toward the rest of the board. Let me be clear. I did not come here to request permission. I came to take back control of what I built. And if any of you believe in transparency, in the original mission we set out with, then it's time to choose. Langston stood, his fists clenched. You're bluffing if you think you can vote me out. It requires a 2/3 board majority, and Maya cut him off. Actually, she said, pulling up another document, Section 4C of our corporate bylaws states, in instances of fiduciary misconduct confirmed by audit, the majority shareholder may motion for immediate suspension of executive powers pending a formal vote. Her eyes locked onto his. And I am the majority shareholder. The silence was deafening. Langston's mouth opened, but no words came. He looked around the boardroom, scanning for backup, but the confidence he once commanded was crumbling by the second. Carlos cleared his throat, not meeting Langston's eyes. Maya's right. That clause has never been invoked, but it's valid. Someone else whispered, "Is she really doing this live?" Yes. The stream was still rolling. Over 10,000 viewers now. Comments flying up the side of Maya's screen like wildfire. She owns it. Literally. This is how you take your power back. Langston's finished. Langston tried again, voice trembling with fury. You're humiliating this company. Airing our dirty laundry. This company is me, Maya snapped. And what humiliates it is not the truth. What humiliates it is men like you thinking you're untouchable. She turned to the board again. I move for the immediate suspension of Arthur Langston's chairmanship, pending a formal vote on his removal under Section 4C. Danica looked at Maya, then at Langston. I second the motion. It was like the boardroom exhaled. Carlos slowly raised his hand. All in favor. Hands went up, one by one. Even Langston's closest allies, faces pale, fingers hesitant, arms raised. 10 hands. One abstained. Langston didn't move. Carlos nodded. Motion carries. Langston let out a low, bitter laugh. You think this ends me? You think one ambush, one stunt, makes you queen again? Maya stepped forward, calm as ever. No, Arthur, she said. I was always the queen. You just built your empire in a house I own. Langston stood still, shoulders heaving, disbelief carved deep into his face. The boardroom wasn't his kingdom anymore. It never truly had been. Maya didn't gloat. She didn't need to. Instead, she turned to the screen behind her, opened a secure portal, and logged in with a biometric scan. The company's digital ledger came to life. In case anyone doubts my authority, she said, this is a real-time authentication of my 52% ownership, verified through smart contracts linked to our corporate blockchain. Untouchable. Undeniable. Gasps rippled around the room. Legal confirmed it. The CFO confirmed it. No room left for interpretation. Maya didn't just have the power now, she always had. Langston's voice was hoarse. You planned this. Maya met his gaze. No. I hoped it wouldn't come to this. I hoped I'd walk in and be seen. Be respected. But power like yours doesn't yield until it's forced to. Someone murmured from the corner. She's not just reclaiming the company. She's rewriting the rules. The live stream continued climbing. 20,000 viewers now. Outside the boardroom glass, employees gathered in the hall, watching on their phones. Word was spreading through the building like electricity. Inside, Maya took her seat at the head of the table. She let her hand rest gently on the polished wood, the same table where they once called her just a diversity win, too emotional, unavailable, while using her silence as an excuse to cut her influence. Not anymore. Maya looked around the room. This company will not be run on intimidation, she said. We will lead with transparency, equity, and accountability. Starting today. And then, almost as an afterthought, she turned to Langston. Your company email has been deactivated. You'll be escorted from the building, the same way you tried to escort me. Langston didn't move at first. He stood there, stunned, his jaw clenched so tightly it looked like it might crack. You're making a mistake, he finally muttered. The board needs someone who understands how to play the game. Maya didn't even blink. I designed the game. You just cheated your way through it. The double glass doors opened, and the head of corporate security, a tall, soft-spoken black man named Ellis, stepped in. He glanced at Maya. She gave him a simple nod. Mr. Langston, Ellis said, his tone respectful but firm. We'll need your badge and credentials. Now. The moment hung heavy. Langston's fists tightened as he looked around the room one last time, searching for even a flicker of loyalty. There was none. He reached into his jacket, pulled out his ID, and slammed it on the table. This is how you treat loyalty? No, Maya said quietly. This is how I treat betrayal. Langston turned, stalking toward the doors, shoulders squared but face flushed. The hallway was now lined with employees, many recording silently, others just watching. Not mocking, just witnessing. For once, Langston had to face the truth. The empire he thought he ruled didn't fear him anymore. As he passed Maya, she said one final thing, not for him, but for everyone listening. Power is not control. Power is stewardship. And you misused both. Langston didn't stop, but his steps faltered, just for a second, and then he was gone. Ellis closed the doors behind him. A breath of collective energy filled the room. Maya turned back to the board. Now, she said, picking up a pen, let's talk about the future. Back in the boardroom, Maya adjusted her chair and leaned forward slightly, tapping her laptop once. The live stream was still rolling, now at 48,000 viewers. A tidal wave of comments poured in. I just saw history. This woman is a force. That's what accountability looks like. They really tried to throw her out of her own company. The board members sat in stunned silence as the magnitude of what had just happened settled into their bones. For some, it was humiliation. For others, relief. Danica broke the silence first. Maya, I don't have an excuse. I followed his lead. I didn't ask questions when you were cut out of decisions. I thought I was just staying neutral, but that was the decision. Maya didn't flinch. Thank you for saying that. Silence protects the problem, not the people. Carlos, the CFO, finally cleared his throat. So what happens now? Maya stood slowly, turning the screen toward the board as she spoke. We're going to start with a company-wide transparency review. Every initiative Langston buried, we're reopening. Every budget he gutted, we're auditing. Every person who was silenced, we're going to listen to. She paused. And then we're going to hire differently. Invest differently. Lead differently. Carlos nodded, almost imperceptibly. And the stream? Maya glanced at the screen. Still live. A beat. Then let them hear it, Carlos said. Maya stepped into the center of the boardroom, framed by the towering city skyline behind her. To every woman, she said, looking directly into the camera. Every black professional. Every founder who was told to wait their turn, to smile through the erasure, to be grateful for scraps. We don't wait anymore. We don't beg for space. We own it. By the time Maya finished speaking, the view count had surged past 76,000. Down in the lobby, interns huddled around phones. PR analysts stared, wide-eyed, at muted news feeds already reporting. Founder reclaims power in live corporate showdown. Maya Jefferson goes viral, and rightfully so. Upstairs, the boardroom felt transformed, not just by what had happened, but by what was now possible. Maya took her seat again and pulled up a list of initiatives that had been shelved under Langston's leadership. Community outreach programs, equity-driven hiring models, a fund for underrepresented startup founders. Each one paused, reevaluated, or redirected into corporate savings. She tapped the list. These programs, she said, weren't charity. They were strategy, long-term investment, and Langston cut them because he didn't understand their value. Danica nodded slowly. We need to restart them. All of them. Maya smiled. Just barely. We will. She turned back to the camera one last time. And for those watching from companies like mine, don't wait for permission to protect your vision. Document everything. Know your bylaws. Build your receipts. And when the moment comes, stand up and own the room. Then, with a final breath, she reached toward the screen and ended the live stream. The room was silent, but it wasn't hollow. It was full of reckoning, full of energy, full of the kind of history you feel in your chest. Carlos leaned in, half stunned. Do you know what you just did? Maya folded her hands. Yes, I just reminded them who I am. By the next morning, the story had gone global. Major news outlets ran headlines like, Black woman CEO reclaims company live. Power shift stuns corporate America. Maya Jefferson's boardroom moment redefines leadership. She built it. They forgot. She reminded them. Clips from the live stream exploded across platforms. TikTok edits with dramatic music. LinkedIn think pieces on boardroom bias. Twitter threads dissecting Langston's fall frame by frame. Hashtags trended. Hashtag she owns it. Hashtag boardroom justice. Hashtag Maya Jefferson. Inside Jefferson Wright headquarters, the vibe had flipped. HR was flooded with emails, some expressing support, some apologizing for past silence. Employees who'd never felt heard suddenly felt seen. But it wasn't all applause. Langston's allies in the industry lashed out quietly. A few clients called to express concern. One hedge fund hinted at pulling out, until they saw the surge in brand visibility and public support. In the boardroom, Maya was ready. She opened the morning meeting with a firm, steady voice. We're not backing down. If investors are uncomfortable with transparency, this isn't their company. We are not going to shrink now that we've stood up. Carlos, reading from a tablet, added, since yesterday, our social engagement's up 640%. Site traffic has doubled. We've received over 2,000 resumes, many from top talent. Danica turned to Maya. We may have made enemies. Maya cut in gently. But we've also found our people. A pause. A breath. Let's rebuild, she said. This time, in full view. The next board meeting didn't begin with financials. It began with a mirror. Literally. On the center of the conference table sat a sleek, black-framed mirror, brought in by Maya herself. One by one, the board members filed in, pausing as their eyes caught their own reflections. Awkward, curious, quiet. When they were all seated, Maya finally spoke. Before we talk numbers, she said, we need to talk culture. She gestured to the mirror. This is what every decision we make needs to pass through. Because what happened in this room wasn't just about me. It was about who this board sees as powerful, as worthy, as real. No one interrupted. No one dared. I've watched people like Langston reshape narratives, override ethics, and gaslight anyone who objected. And too many of you let it happen. No more. She stood now, walking slowly around the table. There will be new ground rules. 1. Every board meeting will be recorded and archived, accessible by shareholders. 2. DEI is not a footnote. It's a metric. Bonuses will now be partially tied to inclusion performance. 3. Any future attempt to override the founder's authority without due process will result in immediate suspension. Danica looked stunned. Is that even enforceable? Maya turned to her. It is now? She dropped a printed resolution on the table. Every policy had already been reviewed and notarized. And lastly, Maya said, voice steady, we will appoint 2 new board members, both women of color, with full voting rights. Effective immediately. There was a silence that wasn't resistant, just sobered. Finally, Carlos leaned forward. I'll second that motion. Hands rose again. This time, they didn't shake. Maya looked at the mirror one last time. It's not just about reflecting. It's about correcting. By the end of the week, Jefferson Wright Enterprises wasn't just in the news, it was setting the news. Other CEOs were being asked if they had watched the video. College professors were assigning it in business ethics courses. Entrepreneurs whispered Maya's name like a warning and a rallying cry all at once. Back at HQ, the ripple effects were immediate. Employees who had once tiptoed through meetings now spoke up without apology. Junior managers started pushing bold ideas again. And most notably, former employees who had left under Langston's regime began reaching out, asking one question. Is there space to come back? Maya spent her evenings reading those emails. Not all of them were easy. Some came from people who had ignored her. Others had benefited from the silence that pushed her out. But she didn't lead with grudges. She led with standards. Accountability first, she told her new executive team. Then opportunity. In a corner conference room, Maya met with Ellis, the head of security who had once been ordered to remove her from her own company. I wanted to thank you, she said. Ellis shook his head. I was just doing my job. No, Maya replied. You chose how you did it. You saw me. You paused. That matters more than you know. She offered him something unexpected, a promotion, head of internal risk and ethics, a new department. You've got instincts, Maya said. And now I want you to help make sure no one here ever forgets what integrity looks like. Ellis accepted. quietly, gratefully, because everyone could feel it now. The empire wasn't just rebuilding. It was awakening. It didn't stop at Jefferson Wright. Other companies started looking inward, spooked by what the Maya Jefferson moment had exposed. Board members resigned from Fortune 500s. Internal memos leaked. Quiet revolutions ignited in offices that once worshipped silence. A week later, Maya received an invitation. Keynote speaker, National Corporate Equity Summit. Topic: Reclaiming the table you built. She almost declined. The work at home wasn't done, but her team insisted. You weren't just heard, Maya, Danica said. You became the echo women have been waiting for. So she went. The room was packed. Executives, students, skeptics, dreamers. When Maya stepped onto the stage, she didn't open with data or policy. She opened with the story. I was mistaken for an intruder in a boardroom I founded. That's not an anecdote. It's a system. She spoke of bias wrapped in politeness, of gatekeeping hidden behind protocol, of brilliance constantly questioned, simply because of skin and gender. And then, she dropped her closing line. Let this be the last time a black woman has to prove she belongs in the house she built. The crowd rose to its feet. Outside, social media exploded again. Hashtag the founder speaks. Hashtag Maya movement. Hashtag not your intruder. And in the audience, sitting quietly in the third row, was a girl no older than 19. Eyes wide, notebook full. After the talk, she approached Maya. I've never seen someone like me own a room like that. Maya smiled. You will, she said. Sooner than you think. 2 months later, Jefferson Wright Enterprises hosted its first open-access board session. Cameras rolled. Employees tuned in. Even the public could stream it live. It was Maya's idea, radical, transparent, and deeply intentional. Let people see how decisions are made, she said. That's how you rebuild trust. The agenda was tight. Unveil a new equity-driven venture capital arm. Restore the education grant Langston had quietly dissolved. And vote in the 2 new board members Maya had promised. As the session opened, Maya stood, not at the head of the table, but among them. No glass walls, she said. No thrones. Just vision, clarity, and community. The 2 new board members took their seats. One was a black woman who'd led grassroots tech programs in underserved cities. The other, an Afro-Latina economic strategist whose TED Talk on generational wealth had gone viral the year before. Their presence alone shifted the temperature of the room. When it came time to vote, the entire board approved, unanimous. Afterward, Maya walked the floor of HQ like she always had, unguarded, unannounced. Employees waved. One handed her a handwritten note. It read, "Thank you for making us feel seen." Later that afternoon, Maya passed the boardroom, the same room where it had all unfolded. She paused at the door, just for a moment. The reflection in the glass wasn't of a woman wronged. It was of a woman risen. She didn't need to walk in again to prove she belonged. Everyone already knew. The press called it the Jefferson effect. Business schools turned it into case studies. But Maya? She stayed focused. Not on fame, on permanence. 6 months after reclaiming her company, she launched the Founders Pledge, a coalition of women of color who owned equity, who demanded seats, and who refused to be erased. Its mission was simple. No more intruders in our own houses. In the first week, over 400 women signed on. Her inbox flooded, not with corporate flattery, but with stories. A tech CEO in Atlanta who'd been ghosted from her own product roadmap. A black woman engineer in Berlin who watched her patents credited to her white male manager. A founder in Lagos told her, "They called me emotional. I called in my lawyer. Because of you." Maya responded to everyone, not with empty encouragement, but strategy, law, policy, names of lawyers, templates for protection, a playbook for power. Back at Jefferson Wright, the company was thriving, new partnerships, investor confidence, employee retention climbing. And Maya? She was already thinking 10 steps ahead. One night, after a long day, her son, now 12, peeked into her home office. "Mom," he said, "are you going to be in more videos?" Maya laughed softly. Maybe. Because I saw one at school. You look like a superhero. She pulled him into a hug. No, baby, she said. I just remembered who I was. Outside her window, the city pulsed with light. And in the boardrooms of tomorrow, echoes of her footsteps would still be walking through the door first. Not to ask for power, but to use it. Thank you for watching. Subscribe me and hit the notification bell to not miss new stories. Bye.